Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and I'm back! I'm back, baby. I finished writing my master's thesis, which is what I've been really busy with the past weeks and months, but I have not been too busy to watch some movies. So, today, as a little catch up, I thought I'm going to talk about some of the recent films I've watched. I'm probably going to do another one of these in a couple of days because there have been a number of films that came out recently, or that I've watched recently, that I thought were really interesting or I really want to talk about, but I didn't have the time to make videos about them because, again, writing a master's thesis takes up a lot of time. But yeah, I'm done with all that, so I finally have the time. So this is the first video where I would like to talk about 5 films I've either recently been released or that I have watched recently. In case you're curious about any of the films I watch, I am on Letterboxd. There's a link to my account down in the description in case you're interested in what kind of movies I'm watching and what my ratings for the individual films are, so you can check that out. But for now, today, I would like to talk about 5 films that I have seen recently. Most of them, I think, are quite recent movies. There is one that came out a couple of years ago, but I think that's still popular or interesting enough to talk about. So yeah, that's it for the introduction. Let's talk about 5 movies. Oh, and just as a quick general warning before we start, there are probably going to be spoilers for all of these movies. There is a list of the films down in the description in case you want to skip any of these. The first movie I would like to talk about is actually not really a movie. It's barely like 30 minutes long, but I was really excited about it, so of course I'm going to talk about namely DC's new showcase film, Constantine, the House of Mystery. Now, if you've watched a couple of my videos, especially about like Legends of Tomorrow, you know that I'm a huge fan of the John Constantine character. He is one of my absolute favorites, even if not my favorite comic book character, period. So I was really excited for this movie. Also because I think this is probably the last time that Matt Ryan plays the character. In case you didn't know, he stepped down from playing the role, which is why he played a new character in season 7 of Legends of Tomorrow. But he also had previously voiced the character in DC's other animated movies like Justice League Dark. And this was, I think, is his final performance as the character. So I was really excited for this to come out. So this is like a DC showcase movie. It's not really a movie because it feels more like, it's more like an epilogue to John Constantine's previous animated movie, which was Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. So this feels a bit more like an epilogue since it basically continues from there. Okay, so when I mean this acts more like an epilogue, this is basically following John as he is being punished for his actions following Apocalypse War, which ends with him encouraging the Flash to basically, you know, go back to the past, create another like Flashpoint event to reset the events, so that not all of his friends in humanity, not that all of them are dead, basically. But of course, a godlike creature is like, you shouldn't really meddle with time, John. You really shouldn't do that, so I'm going to punish you. And the punishment is that John is trapped in the House of Mysteries for eternity. So this is the general setting. First off, I didn't think this was only going to be like 30 minutes. I thought this was going to be like maybe at least like 45, 50 minutes. I know the DC animated films aren't always that long, but I was hoping for a bit more. Maybe that was just me misunderstanding what they were going to do, but heck, this is what we're getting, so I'm watching it. They also redesigned Constantine for this, and I have to admit, I think I prefer this style, or this visual characterization of his character a bit more actually than his regular or previous incarnations that we saw in the DC animated universe. Because in this new version, I think he looks a bit more. I think it just looks a bit more scruffy and rugged, and a bit more. I don't know if he can look working class, but you know what I mean. I just think his look reflects his character a bit more in this. He doesn't look too clean. He looks like slightly shabby and a bit, skinny and scruff. And I don't know. I just kind of like the redesign that they use in this. Weirdly enough, we do see John from like Apocalypse War, and they use that old design, which was kind of weird because how do you explain that both these Constantines don't look the same even though they are the same person? So what's actually happening in the movie is, John gets trapped in the House of Mysteries and basically relives his life there every time he dies. His friends are there, and he's like, what the hell is going on? Some of my friends are dead, they shouldn't be here. And then they turn into demons, and he's basically trapped like in the House of Mysteries to die over and over and over again. But of course he tries to get out, and then at the end we have a weird cliffhanger where it looks like the universe explodes, implodes, whatever. John is staring at it in horror, and that's where the film cuts off. I thought it was okay. I was maybe a tiny bit disappointed, if I'm being honest, because I do like the general idea of like this concept of stuff repeating itself, but it got a bit too old too quickly. I thought I wish we would have looked a bit more at the emotional background behind it all, since I think that's one of the very good moments in the movie, is that the godlike creature who has sent John to the House of Mysteries is basically like, I sent you there to live with your friends so you wouldn't feel so you wouldn't feel too lonely by yourself there. I didn't turn them into demons, that's what you did. Basically, so his mind turned his friends and family into demons because he thinks he's not worthy of their love, that he's undeserving of their love, which, just hits so hard and is unfortunately so true for the John Constantine character, because my man's just never allowed to be happy. And that emotional moment was really good, but I thought I wish we would have explored that a bit more. I also thought, especially like in the beginning, John got tricked one too many times. I thought, because like, John, you're a master of the dark arts. Shouldn't you quickly adjust to this and realize what's going on? One other thing I liked is that I can't remember what, because I'm so bad with remembering story titles, but they basically take like the loophole Constantine used in his arguably most famous comic book storyline, where he tries to escape death by selling his soul to 3 demons at the same time. They basically do that here as well. They use that. I thought, oh cool, that's a nice reference. And very like on par with what Constantine usually does to get out of situations like that. So overall, I liked it. I thought it was okay. It's too short. Naturally, it's too short. I was expecting a bit more. Wish they could have explored the premise a bit more. But I'm always happy to see John Constantine, especially voiced by Matt Ryan. And you don't necessarily have to check this one out, but if like me, you're a huge fan of Matt Ryan and or the John Constantine character, yeah, give this one a watch. It's not too bad. The next movie I would like to talk about is The Electrical Life of Louis Wain. So this I was interested in because it has 2 of my favorite things in the world: Benedict Cumberbatch and cats. So how could I not watch this? Okay, so this is based on real life events. The artist was really alive, like I think it's like early 20th century or something, as he's played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And Louis was a bit of an odd fella. So he perceived the world very differently. He saw beauty in things that people thought were a bit strange, and also throughout the film you hear him like babble about ideas where you're like, okay, weird. And he basically became famous for his painting of cats, which were really endearing, wholesome, and kind of weird and funny. And people really liked that. But Louis also very evidently, as also comes across in the movie, struggled with mental health issues, all different kinds. Like, he definitely has a very neurodivergent connotation to him. So it's about his life, his marriage and his wife, and his grief because his wife dies early on in his life. And what's there to say? I really liked it. First off, the visuals are brilliant. It sort of has a style like it's a bit made like an old-timey movie. A bit. I think from what I remember, it's even shot in like a different aspect ratio, so it feels a bit more old-fashioned. There's like a color palette to it, or like a filter. I don't know how to describe it, but it really gives it sort of like a vintage vibe, like a painting vibe. There is one really gorgeous shot in the film where Louis and his wife go like they're on a walk in the forest, and they sit down on a log or something in the woods, and the camera just pans out to a wide shot, and it like the shot itself in real life already looks very picturesque and like a painting, and slowly, without you almost even noticing it, the shot turns into an actual painting. It's just brilliant. They also include like weird kaleidoscopic visions, especially when Louis starts to discover, electricity, and he gets really excited about that. I just in general really enjoyed how they played with the visuals and the cinematography in this movie. That was really, really interesting. Overall, the story, it's not really unique. It's basically like the life of this one guy that you may or may not have heard of. I had no idea this man existed, but I thought it was very interesting to hear about him, especially, like I said, since he is very evidently someone who struggled with mental health issues. And was sort of a bit of an outsider during his lifetime. People liked his art, but they also then kind of quickly forgot about him, and he became sort of like a weird old man, basically. But it was interesting to see that, and I mean, naturally, Benedict Cumberbatch is a wonderful actor. He basically he plays these kinds of eccentric but endearing kind of characters very well. That's sort of what he's known for, I would argue, and he definitely brings that charm to this role as well. This character feels a bit more, wholesome and awkward, and I think he plays this vulnerable weirdness very well, that you really can like feel with him when he's struggling, when he gets emotional. It's just like really good, solid character work. And if you're interested in a visually stunning movie, if you're, just like me, a fan of Benedict Cumberbatch's work, or if you just want an interesting movie about an interesting person, I can definitely recommend this film. Now, this next one is not a recent film, but I would argue it's still, within the mind of the internet and the moviegoers, because I think it's one of the most talked about horror movies in recent years, namely Midsommar. Now, I think everyone knows Midsommar at this point. It's basically like about a group of friends, but especially about this one girl. They travel to Sweden to what is very evidently like a cult village of weird people, and they get caught up in all their weird cult business. And that's the film. I was kind of conflicted. Like, it wasn't bad, but it also wasn't great. I think I gave it like a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. And I'm not even sure that accurately reflects how I feel about this. The general vibes are interesting because first off, it's a horror movie that's set almost completely during the daytime. It doesn't rely on like the darkness and the shadows and the jump scares out of the shadows, which is kind of nice. Um, I appreciate like sort of the set design and the the dresses and the clothes and the outfits from the village cult people, and how they sort of bring like this very exclusive part of Swedish culture to the whole film. That's kind of interesting. But it is in of itself not, I would argue, not a wholly unique premise, or at least not how it is explored. It has major Wicker Man vibes, and if you've watched other horror movies, especially ones about like cults or similar things, this isn't going to be exactly new to you, I would argue. I would also say maybe don't expect this to be the kind of horror movie that like tries to frighten you, because that's not what this film does. It's much more about the vibes and the feels that makes you go like, okay, that's weird. I don't know how I feel about that. There isn't like really like there isn't any gore. Like deaths do happen in the movie naturally. Like all of her friends, I think, are killed off by the end of the film. You don't see any of that. You don't see any on-screen like kills, gore. It's not really trying to like jump scare you. It's not even doing psychological horror. Yeah. It is much more focused just like on the main character, like the main girl's experiences with this weird cult. And there's like this theme of like her whole family dies basically at the opening of the film, which takes up like 30 minutes until we get to the whole point of the film. And she also very evidently has relationship problems. She doesn't really belong. She feels like she doesn't belong anywhere. She doesn't have any family. She doesn't really like her friends. Her boyfriend doesn't really understand her. So she gets sort of sucked into this weird cult, and at the end, she basically becomes their flower queen, whatever the hell, and she seemingly now feels accepted within this new community. It's hard to articulate my feelings about this because I don't feel like there's too much I can say about it. I feel like maybe I would be able to say more about it if I like rewatched it maybe at some point, because there are interesting things in that, and I think there are details you could like pay more attention to if you watched it like a second time. But overall, I think it was a tiny bit like underwhelming, maybe even a bit disappointing, because I thought they could have done more with the concept. Maybe it's also my fault for like thinking that this was going to be like a pure horror flick, which it just isn't. I feel like I know that this film has sort of been very divisive, that a lot of people really, really liked it, but there were also some people who didn't like it at all. And I can kind of understand both sides. I'm just sort of in the middle. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's a bit too long. I'm not sure about how they explore the whole Swedish culture cult thing. Some stuff was just like, okay, weird. Why was this here? Would I watch it again? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But overall, I thought it was okay, but it didn't really stick with me. Now this next movie, oh boy, I've been excited to watch this one. The Uncharted movie, starring Tom Holland. Okay, a bit of background history with this. Okay, so I'm not like really that big of a fan of the Uncharted games. I don't have nostalgia for it. I haven't really played the games. The only game I have partly played is the fourth one, because my girlfriend really likes the fourth Uncharted game. She has also played the other ones in the series, but this was the one she really wanted me to experience, so we played it together. So that's the one I have knowledge of, the fourth one, which I enjoyed. But I watched this together with my girlfriend, who, like I said, is a fan of the Uncharted series. So it was kind of fun going into this with me being like, okay, I'm going to watch this from like just a standard movie geek viewpoint where I'm like, okay, is this going to be an interesting like adventure action flick with like maybe a bit of background knowledge, and her watching this from the standpoint of, you know, an Uncharted fan. This film is bad. It's not like one of the worst films I've ever seen, but it's just so boring and annoying and disappointing and wrong in so many ways, not just as a video game adaptation, but also just as a film in general. Like, okay, what are some of the classic points that we can talk about? First off, the casting. Even I know this casting is so wrong. Like, I wouldn't even have to play the games to see that Tom Holland doesn't fit this role. He just doesn't. He's a good actor. He's a good man. The guy's a lot of fun, but he's not a Nathan Drake type. He's just not. Mark Wahlberg is just Mark Wahlberging. He's playing himself. You don't even have to realize that he's maybe based on someone who he's definitely not playing. He's just doing himself. If you've seen any of his other classic performances, it's exactly the same. It's just Mark Wahlberg doing Mark Wahlberg. The one actor I was kind of excited about was Antonio Banderas, because he's cool. He plays the villain, and he's kind of interesting. And then he's killed off and replaced by his henchwoman. And you're like, what even is the point? So, yeah. Casting, weird. They do not feel like the characters whatsoever. And even if you're not familiar with the characters, you're like, something just feels off. The story is very basic. It's just like, you know, a classic sort of treasure hunt adventuring film. Could be worse, could be better, I think. There aren't really any big surprises. There are like some action scenes thrown in there naturally. There's like witty banter. But nothing feels special. You've seen all of this kind of stuff before. And at the end of the day, you're just like, why did I waste 2 hours with this? Now, as someone who's only mildly familiar with the games, and when I say that, I mean I'm familiar with one of the games, the fourth one, you can tell that they took a lot from the fourth game. This movie feels like a weird Frankenstein monster version of the fourth game, but like in all the bad ways. While we were watching this, my girlfriend like pointed out a couple of other things they took from like previous games or characterization bits that they ignored or included in weird ways. And basically, this film feels like a very weirdly put together, stitched up version of moments from the video games. But they didn't really know how to put them in an interesting, coherent story so that it all makes sense. It just doesn't work. Especially because they put in a lot of story surrounding the character of Sam, who is Nathan Drake's brother, who I thought, who only turns up in the fourth game, but I thought he was a really interesting character in that game. The thing is, he only turns up in the fourth game. He's not mentioned at all beforehand. And the movie, which is basically like sort of prequel, since Nathan Drake is young, or younger, they play around a lot with like mentioning Sam and how much he means to Nate. The thing is, Sam is not important to the movie. He does not turn up in the film. The film treats it like Sam is going to turn up maybe during the climax of the film to save the day. He's not. He's in like a flashback in the beginning of the film, and Nate and Sully occasionally mention him, and that's it. Overall, he doesn't really have a bearing on the story. He doesn't turn up, and you're like, why are we focusing on Sam so much? He is not important to the film. He shouldn't even be important at this point of the Uncharted story. Just so many weird decisions from adaptational standpoint. And as an action film, it's just so generic and basic. And it gets even worse when you have the games in mind, or know some things about the games and know what should be in an adaptation of this regarding the action, everything. Like, my girlfriend pointed this out, there should be a lot more like nature stuff. And she's right, there should be a lot, like driving through the jungle, having a shootout, climbing ancient ruins, all that kind of stuff, like deep in the wilderness, in nature, exploring weird old secrets. And we spent most of this film in cities, or in big buildings, or in some kind of modern day setting, which doesn't feel like Uncharted at all. Also, in my mind, I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of parkouring. I'm like, that's like the whole point of the games. Parkouring in the wilderness and shooting stuff. And I feel like that's not in this. I feel like Nate did barely any like major parkouring sections. There's like one where where he runs after Chloe and tries to catch her. That's like the one sort of cool parkouring moment. It lasts a bit longer. Yeah, just so many weird decisions in this film. It's not good. It's bad. The thing is, if it wasn't called Uncharted, if it literally was just called the treasure hunt movie with Tom Holland, I think this would automatically be better. Simply because you wouldn't have in mind that this is supposed to be Uncharted. Like, you can basically just change the names of these characters, and that's it. That's like, what makes it Uncharted is the fact that it's called Uncharted and that the characters have the same names. That's like, you just need to change names and it becomes a whole different thing. It's weird, it's bad. Don't watch it. Just play the games. Or if you're not a fan of video games or can't afford to play them, just watch a playthrough on YouTube. These games are basically like playable action movies. Which is probably why it was a dumb idea to make a movie out of them in the first place, because these games already play like films. Just don't watch it. It's bad, it's annoying, and I hope we all forget about it soon. Okay, and lastly, let's talk about a film I was positively excited about to watch, namely Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia for the Sonic video games. It's one of the few franchises that I've sort of been following throughout the years, and I have a lot of fond feelings for this little blue hedgehog guy. So I was naturally excited for this film to come out. I enjoyed the first one. I thought it was pretty good. It was fun. Thank God they redesigned that hedgehog. It was fun. It was great. It was a bit weird in some places, but overall I think it was very enjoyable. So I was excited about the second one, mostly because it introduced one of my favorite characters in the Sonic franchise, Knuckles. And Knuckles is the best thing about this entire film. Now, Knuckles is voiced by Idris Elba. Perfect choice. This echidna sounds so freaking badass throughout this entire film. And what I love about this characterization is that they took the classic characterization and the modern day characterization and made it into a functioning, entertaining personality. Meaning, they don't forget that Knuckles, especially in the very beginning of the franchise, was supposed to be this very proud, strong, loyal warrior with a sense of duty, who wasn't really all about jokes. He was more of a serious character. but they also take elements from his more modern day characterization, which I would argue is sort of has a bit like of a himbo vibe. Like he's more like muscle than brain, that sort of thing. So throughout the film, there are occasionally moments where he like doesn't understand Earth customs, or he doesn't really understand a joke, and he's a bit too hot-headed, that sort of thing. But I think it works really well. So I was glad that they managed to make Knuckles a well-rounded, very interesting character who I think most people agreed on was the best thing about this film, and I think he fits into the roster of characters in this movie series very well. They also introduced Tails. Tails is just adorable. I'm glad he's voiced by the same voice actress who also voices him in the games. Can please more adaptations do this? Like, you already have voice actors from the original games. That's literally their job. Just use them in your movies. Yeah, so Tails is cute. I like his friendship with Sonic. I like that he's allowed to be sort of childish and a bit of a nerd with Maya Sonic. He's maybe a bit scared sometimes, but he also stands up to the moment if he needs to. He's brave when he needs to be, and he has his gadgets, and I really like it. It's definitely better than his more recent characterizations in the video games, which haven't been that great. So he works really well in this film. I like his friendship with Sonic. Sonic, again, I think works great as a character. Ben Schwartz does a good work as the character. I like that they point out here that Sonic isn't really... He's a kid. He's like 15 years old. I like that they sort of lean into that and say, okay, yeah, you are a hero, but you still need to work on it because, you're still very young. You're still just a child. So I like that they still, even now in the second film, still give him a character arc to explore now that he's trying to adjust to this sort of more heroic stance he tries to take in his day-to-day life. Overall, there is a lot more focus on, which I think is understandable, on the Sonic characters, on the non-human characters. I know some people complained about that, but I don't really mind. That's like that's what I'm here for. I'm here to see the three animals and Eggman. That's what I'm here for. That's the whole point of the Sonic movie. And it's not like I completely forget about the human characters. Like Sonic's family, they still get included, but to the right amount. To the right amount. I love their interactions. I thought it was really cute at the end when Sonic calls him Dad. That was really cute. And in general, I didn't really have too much of a problem with the movie focusing more on like the anthropomorphic characters than the human characters. Now, was this movie better or worse than the first one? I think about the same quality. I enjoyed it as much as the first one. It's slightly a bit more enjoyable because of Knuckles and Tails. I think I still give the second movie the same rating as the first one, which was like 3.5 stars. It's very enjoyable because of the new characters. There's some stuff in there where you're like, why is this here? Why is this going on for so long? Especially like the whole bit in Siberia. The first time I watched it, I've actually watched this film twice, I should mention at this point. But the first time I watched it, I was like, why is this? How long is this gonna go on for? The second time around, it wasn't as bad. But, there are like scenes like that or some jokes that go on for a bit too long and it starts feeling too awkward. Also, especially like the whole wedding thing with the friend from the first one who didn't really like Sonic. That whole thing was a bit too long in some places and a bit too blown up. Like it didn't really had to be there. The movie didn't really need to focus on that, so that felt a bit out of place. I was like, can we like get back to the blue hedgehog? That would be real nice. Jim Carrey as Eggman has some genuinely hilarious moments, but also some moments where you're like, Jim Carrey is just being weird and not in a funny way, where it's just like, that was a choice in performance, I guess. I mean, it's Jim Carrey, what do you do? I especially enjoyed like the whole climax of the film. That was brilliant. Like our three animal friends teaming up. You're immediately getting like Sonic Heroes vibes. It's cool, it's brilliant, everyone gets to bring their A game. And then they go with Supersonic. I honestly freaked out a little bit when I saw Supersonic for the first time and this whole golden Super Saiyan look. It's just brilliant. It's so much fun. You're like, yes, this is what you want as a Sonic fan. It was really fun. I don't even mind that they like slightly changed the whole mythology around the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emerald. They kind of slightly changed that how it works in the film, but I think that's fine. I think the movie ends at a very good point, and they have this teaser at the end, which freaked me the hell out. The teaser at the end where they show that they found Shadow. Project Shadow has been found after 50 years. And that got me so excited because Shadow is my favorite character in the Sonic franchise. And if they go for like a Sonic Adventure 2 inspired storyline, it would be brilliant because that's my favorite Sonic game. So this movie made me really excited for the next one. I thought this was a solid sequel to the first one. Similar to the first one, it's decent, it's watchable, it's funny, it's a bit too awkward and weird in some places. Some jokes don't really land, some jokes go on for a bit too long. There are some scenes in there where like they don't need to be here, or they feel weird, or can we go back to what's actually important? I think the Sonic the Hedgehog films still remain as probably the best and most faithful video game adaptations, which is saying something, but I don't mind because everyone always made fun of it, and now it turns out the Sonic movies are actually decent and a lot of fun. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with the second Sonic the Hedgehog film, and I'm definitely looking forward to the third one. Okay, so that's it for the films I have watched recently. Like I said, I'm probably going to do a follow-up in a couple of days where I talk about some other films I've also seen recently that I didn't have time to talk about here, but I still want to talk about. Hint, hint, the Batman, hint, hint. So yeah, look out for that. Please do tell me down in the comments below what some of your favorite films are that you've watched recently. Have you seen any of the films I talked about here today? If so, please do tell me about your opinions on these movies down in the comments below. As always, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I'll see all of you very soon. Bye.